Run to that intercom so you can scream how awesome you are, because we're talking about infinite combos today at the card pool.
And it's another magic moment for us.
It is Houdini Be Proud. I'm Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And today, like we said, it's a magic moment, and we're looking at the infinite combos that you will probably see if you are playing Commander.
Yeah, this is sort of like the stacks video we did a little bit back, where we're going to be talking about this in sort of that same kind of way, trying to make these easily understandable for people.
Yeah.
And yeah, because infinite combos are kind of the backbone of the way people win in Commander games. So,
yeah, especially when you first get into Magic and you don't know what just happened, but you lost. And it's like, I'll leave, but I'm confused as hell.
Right.
So either way, we will start off with some of the iconics and go through the process.
Indeed. And yeah, we'll kind of leave out some ways of how to stop combos generically, like counter spells, political decisions, loss prevention, like Platinum Angel or Teferi's Protection, those generic kind of things.
Just generic we take the generics out and say, hey, this is my way of throwing your tempo off.
Yeah.
And let's look at the most iconic.
All right.
Iconic infinite combo.
In my opinion, this is probably
now you call this Mike and Shrike, so you take this one.
So yeah, the basic one, it started with Mikaeus the Unhallowed and Triskelion. So the way this works is Mikaeus the Unhallowed gives all non-human creatures Undying, which means if it dies, it comes back to play with a +1/+1 counter. Let's look at Triskelion. It comes into play with counters on it, and you can remove counters to do 1 damage to any target. So, how does this work? Well, you have to have both of these in play at the same time.
Yes.
Once you do, Triskelion, you can take 2 counters off of it, ping somebody for 2 damage. Then you use its last counter to ping itself. Because Triskelion is a 1/1, it will die. However, since it's not a human, it has Undying, and it comes back into play with an additional 1 and 3 more from its own ability, 4 counters. So, you can do this all over again. So you basically keep killing it when it's down to 1, it comes back with a fresh load of counters, and you kill everyone at the table.
You machine gun down the table, and
exactly.
If you love this combo, you got another birthday present at you, because Walking Ballista was a card that is now also in that abusability quotient corner.
Walking Ballista is a really dumb card in general. It's so good, but this is just one reason it makes it even better. It's better than Triskelion for this combo, because you can play it for 0. It will automatically die, and again, because it's a non-human, it comes back with 1 counter on it. You take it off, it dies, you bring it back. It just makes it even easier to win.
Yeah, it made it so like if you play Mikaeus on turn 5, you play this, you win.
Yeah.
And it's, again, this is very iconic for the fact that Mikaeus is Commander, and people run this stuff in there just for a way to win it. And no ifs, ands, or buts.
Right. And how do you stop a combo like this? So that's what we're going to be talking about for all of these.
Now, there is a great way. So, again, we're taking counters out. We're taking...
Yeah, all the obvious things.
Yeah, Teferi's Protection's not a way for this. One of the easiest ways to do this is... It's the greatest way to stop black is you make it so the grave is exiled. Something like a Leyline of the Void would be nice, because once it goes to the grave, it is gone. I mean, we're also going to take away any form of spot removal, because obviously if you kill Mikaeus...
Then it stops,
Yeah, you cut the head, the body dies, all right? That's what we're kind of doing there with that. But beyond that, what would be your way of doing it?
Well, if you give yourself hexproof with something like Leyline of Sanctity, that can do it, because they can't shoot you for damage anymore. But if they have something like a Zulaport Cutthroat or a Blood Artist that triggers when things die, then you're still out of luck, because it's going to happen anyway.
And there is also a fun way. It takes a little bit more. It's a little more niche. It's also, if you have something like Worship out and you have a creature that's indestructible, they can't kill you.
Right,
more or less. Or like Pariah and a creature that's indestructible. If you have some way to make it so that damage can be prevented, like a Spore Frog, that's something that could also go ahead and be nice.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, the one card that stops any kind of shenanigans like this is Solemnity. What a good card.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
That's a great... I'm only finding more uses for Solemnity as it comes out, and I think I might actually start picking up a copy or two for that reason.
Probably a good idea.
But moving away from this combo, and again, if you are getting sick of oppressive decks, this is a combo that you could use to bring up the oppression level for your friends or enemies.
You could, yeah, and this is one I see fairly a lot in the kinds of decks that can support it, but we're talking Duskmantle Guildmage and its partner in crime, Mind Crank.
Oh. This is great. So,
Yeah.
legit, this is pretty much an iconic win for just milling your opponent out to their death. And the reason why this works out so well is because if your opponent were to draw a card, or when there is no card in their deck zone, they lose. If they're going to
Right.
be doing something else that interacts with the deck zone and there's nothing there, inherently they lose from that as well. So, I mean, you read better than
Well,
I
and
do.
you can
You
probably
tell them what it
well,
does.
and you can yeah. So in any case, Mind Crank is an artifact that makes it so when your opponent loses life, they mill that many cards. So Duskmantle Guildmage has two abilities. One, somebody mills two cards. Simple. The other one is more interesting. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere this turn, they lose one life. Interesting. So if you pair that with Mind Crank, if you have both of these out, you activate both of Duskmantle Guildmage's abilities. You have 7 mana to just do that. Then they mill two cards. They mill 2 cards. They lose 2 life. Mind Crank sees the loss of life and mills them 2 more cards. Duskmantle Guildmage sees the mill and makes them lose life. Yeah,
it's constantly
over
catching
and over
up
and
to
over.
the other one. It's going like this the whole time,
Yeah,
and then it's gone.
Well, and one of the most amusing things about this is in Commander, mill isn't always as viable a strategy as it could be because a lot of people
I
include
think it's very
a
viable.
lot of people include anti-mill cards in their decks, like the Eldrazi Titans, which shuffle your whole graveyard back into your library
Or a
when they go to
Blightsteel
the graveyard. Right. So there are cards that can stop milling from being a viable strategy, but the beauty of this is even if you don't get them with the milling, the life loss will.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very strong, very oppressive thing. I mean, is this a fair combo? I think almost no.
I don't know. I mean, there are ways of getting around it. You can have a card if you stop Duskmantle Guildmage's activated abilities.
It can just pay
That's
it again.
fine. But there is Bloodchief Ascension is another card that can turn on Mind Crank and do this very same thing.
Okay.
So also, yeah, having a high life total or anti-mill cards can't stop this. Hexproof can to a certain extent, but other cards involved it might not.
Yes.
So I don't know. Is this one? This one's probably one of the more unfair combos out there.
Yeah, it's
It's
lot
hard to stop.
It's hard to disrupt. I mean, this will typically be in any kind of blue-black mill deck, just as like the nail in the coffin. They'll
Yeah.
wait to play some of these cards until they have both and enough mana, and just go in and be like, I win. All 3 of you die, and I win. That's how
Yeah.
strong this is for just to take out all 3 players at once.
Oh yeah.
And it's the same thing we see with Micaeus. I'd say Micaeus is a little bit more fair than this guy, just because it has a way of disruption, whereas this one is...
There are a lot of different things you could do to stop Micaeus. We didn't even cover the whole like enters the battlefield abilities. So if you have like a Torpor Orb, it doesn't do anything anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but I mean, this has to be stifled or killed, and you have to remove the piece, but you're in black, you can return it. Blue can tutor out this stuff really easily. Black
Yeah.
can tutor this out really easily. I mean, you can lose on turn 4.
Right. It's very easy to do this.
Yeah, it's very easy, very fast, low cost, and I mean, Mind Cranks have never been below $5 really.
Oh no, the Mind Crank is so cheap, and both of these cards are like extremely cheap. So even in a budget deck, you can do this.
Well, I just meant it's not going to go down below $5 because it's just got value nonstop. Whether it's going for this combo or not, it's just good.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to another one.
All right, I'm calling dibs on this one.
Okay,
though.
go ahead.
This one is my favorite to see because it just makes me be like, yay, you weren't original. This is a Kiki-Jiki / Splinter Twin combo. Now, these cards right here, either one of them will make it so that you can go off with a handful of other ways. So Kiki was the OG of this bad boy, and it reads, pretty much you tap this, you put a token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control onto the battlefield. That token has haste, and at the end of the turn, you pretty much sack it. So it seems like, all right, you're just getting a copy of something. Well, and Splinter Twin has the same thing. Well, there's 3 cards that can really abuse this because it makes it so it doesn't stop. And
There are more too. It's just these are some of the ones you'll see most often.
yeah, so we're looking at 3 other cards here, and they are called, well, let's get a picture of them real fast.
Yeah.
But we got Pestermite, Kiki-Jiki are the easiest ones that you usually see. But if you're not in just, well, if you're doing mono red, Zell's Conscript is typically the bad boy that goes with it. So what these guys do real fast, I'm not even talking about Deceiver yet, but all right, let's go to Zell's Conscripts because this one's just kind of just fun. So when Zell's Conscripts enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent until the end of turn. Okay, that sounds nice. Untap that permanent, it gains haste until the end. The untapping is what goes off and makes us nuts because you go ahead and you target Kiki Jiki or whatever has the Splinter Twin on it, and it goes ahead and untaps. It creates another Zealous Conscript. That goes ahead and retargets that again. It does it again.
Yeah.
And all these cards, pretty much the 3 that we showed, plus there are others out there, just making sure that it untaps, you grow an infinitely large
army with haste.
With haste.
Yeah, that can instantly kill somebody.
Because the Zealous Conscripts aren't tapped.
Yeah, there's even other ways to do this. If you have a Dualcaster Mage plus a Twin Flame or a Cackling counterpart, that'll do pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Except with it in a different way. The reason Zealous Conscript seems like a weird one is because you say, gain control of target permanent. Well, how does that work? Because you have to steal your opponent's thing. No. It doesn't say target thing and opponent controls. It's just a thing. There is no rule that says you cannot take control of something you already control.
Yeah, and it's just, it's one of the ones at first you realize it and you're like, huh.
Yeah.
I think
it's really weird.
I do this, I'll target that, and then it'll give me this, and then I'll target that. It's like the first time I would have loved to see the person's face who discovered this at first, just to be like, and then I do it again. And then I do it again. It's like asking for more cheese at Olive Garden. Yeah. It's just kind of like, it can keep coming. I don't have to do anything with this. This is great. So with this kind of infinite combo you have here, it is very oppressive for the fact that it's on a commander for 1, and there's so many little pieces that can get tacked onto this.
Yeah, it's also very quick. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, all right, Kiki Jiki's 5 mana. Oh, that's too much. I'll use Splinter Twin, which costs 4.
Yeah.
4.
Exactly. However, I will say in fairness, there are a bunch of ways to stop this combo.
Yes, there are.
So just by shutting down ETB triggers with a Torpor Orb, that's death right there.
Well, I was thinking more if you go for like the control route with white where everything enters into play tapped.
That too. That is absolutely true, and that's one of the things that makes people so sad.
Yeah, you do
I love it.
a blind obedience, you do a consulate.
The authority of the consuls.
And I mean there's so much more with that. It's not just in white. You can go ahead and do that with even a red card like Varanclex. No, not Varanclex, the other Praetor.
Oh, Urbrask.
Urbrask, the hidden. Like, there's so many different ways to make it so, like, all you have to do is make it so it's tapped. All right, they got an army that's arbitrarily large, but they can't use it that turn.
Right. Also, if you shut down the combat step with something like Stonehorn Dignitary, for example, this whole thing relies on them hitting you for infinite damage via combat.
Yes.
Unless they have something like Impact Tremors, which can just win the game on its own.
Yes.
Then without a combat step, they can do nothing.
Yeah, and that's also the interesting part about all these combos. They can also have things tacked onto them to get even bigger, like more toolboxy for any scenario. But like, and also to shut this one down, back on that subject, use any kind of pillow fort kind of things. They have to pay to attack kind of thing.
Right.
All right, let me just go ahead and use propaganda. All right, Ghostly Prison.
Yeah.
You aren't getting through. So even though this one can use so many more pieces, it still has so many more ways, I feel like, of being denied.
Well, and back when I was playing Modern a lot, this was like the Splinter Twin decks were one of the best things to play in Modern. One of my favorite things to do whenever I came up against one of these decks, game 1 I would usually lose, but game 2, there's really no way around it if you're not prepared for it.
Yes, there never is.
So game 2, side in Rakdos Charm. One of Rakdos Charm's abilities is every creature in play does 1 damage to its controller. So they make infinite creatures. I maybe have 1 or 2. They swing at me, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, Rakdos Charm, you lose.
That's a fun one right there.
Yeah, so funny.
Well, also, this effect, it can be stifled, and it can stop it in that route. Also, an effect where it can be, who's the 2-drop? When you name a card, it can't be casted, and it can't use its effect.
Right, yeah, Meddling Mage, yeah.
Well, Meddling Mage, but I was thinking of the artifact, the colorless one. It was like Phyrexian...
Spyglass. Sorcerer's
Phyrexian
Spyglass.
Revoker.
Or Phyrexian Revoker,
That's the
that
one.
too, yeah.
Yeah, so you can use some things like that where it's like, for example, the Undying effect can't be stopped by a Phyrexian Revoker. It's a triggered effect.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, it's an activated ability. So, I mean, you could also go ahead and use something like Arrest on this or something like that. So, this one I'm not heavily peeved about when this one
No,
happens.
I'm not really either.
Yeah, this one's fair. This one's fun. You have ways to go with it, and there's like again, you can actually have strategy to this deck to kind of win beyond just this. This can
Yeah.
just be your way. Like, all right, this game's gone on long enough. I'm ending it, as opposed to like this is the only thing the deck does. What you
Yeah.
see with Mackay more or less.
Definitely. Well, we're gonna go on to one more, I think.
All right.
This one here, I'm going to talk about. This one is pretty well known. Niv Mizzet and Curiosity. And there are actually other cards now other than Curiosity that can make this work, but Niv Mizzet is the reason this works. So look at Niv Mizzet here. When you draw a card, he does 1 damage to any target. You can tap him to draw a card. Curiosity says whenever the enchanted creature does damage to an opponent, you can draw a card. Not combat damage, any damage. So let's say
So I guess around fogs right there.
Yeah, exactly. So you have Niv Mizzet. Let's say you just played him. You know, you enchant him with Curiosity, and you manage to somehow draw a card. Then he does 1 damage.
You just tap him to draw a
Well,
card.
if you just played him, he doesn't have haste. You know, you can't exactly.
You're in
do
red.
that.
He has haste.
But if he does, yeah, you can either somehow draw a card, or you just use his ability to tap and draw a card. He does 1 damage. Curiosity draws you a card. He does 1 damage. Curiosity draws you a card, and so on and so on.
This is the domino effect. You just 1 tap. You don't have to keep tapping it again. Whereas Kiki Jiki, you have to keep tapping it again. You're like, hey, do it again, please. Do it again, please. Like another.
And one of the benefits is Niv Mizzet can be a commander. There are whole decks just built around doing this and making this happen. Curiosity's 1 mana. This is really easy to make happen.
Yeah, it's super, super easy. Especially if this is the commander. This can be just also in the 99 because it's that good, that easily. Curiosity is also a card that's not that bad either.
No.
So like if you're going for unblockable strategies, throw this on there. No big deal. So this is something, it can be prevented. In a variety of ways.
Yeah, just don't let Niv Mizzet live.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way. Don't let it live.
That's already a strategy for in Commander, as it is, just kill creatures. But sometimes they can get the effect before that goes off. So this is, again, since this can be at instant speed, can be faster than the kill spell, depending on how it goes.
It could be. However, one thing that's important to note about this is unless they have some crazy weird way to recycle like their massive hand into their deck, this combo is only as strong as the size of their remaining deck.
Yes. And they can actually potentially mill out and lose before all players are dead.
Right.
So it could be like, I'll take out 2 of you and you're down to half and I got nothing else I can do because I don't have enough mana. I have my whole deck in my hand, but I am out of place.
So arguably, the longer the game goes on, the less effective this becomes.
Yeah. However, you can put the grave back in the deck. You can shuffle your graveyard into your hand and all this stuff and place it back in and everything else like that. And plus, also, blue just can draw cards on its own. This is something that you can just go ahead and, even if you don't have Niv Mizzet for this, I mean, there's other ways.
Oh yeah, there is. But also, like, the same kind of things we've talked about, like preventing damage and hexproof, not combat damage, just general damage, that'll work. But also, one of the more fun ways to stop this is to have something like a Nesukar or an Obnixilis Ultimate, where every time they draw a card, they get hurt worse than you.
Yeah.
So...
Well, not only that, but you can go ahead and use something like Spiteful Visions or any of the other cards to make it so, like, draw another card, like a Font of Mythos.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can actually have decks that are already using stuff like that, and then they're like, oh, well... we can be allies, right? Like, don't play that card. Yeah, so it can be disrupted. This one, again, it has its chance. Once you see this as the commander, you already kind of know this is coming. So it's not like, oh my god. Could you have fathomed such a thought? No, yeah, I did. You telegraphed this.
So yeah, you need to be really careful when you're playing against Niv Mizzet decks. Or decks with Izzet colors in general, you just need to be careful about.
Yeah, they storm off like crazy because they think that's fun.
Yeah, but otherwise, I don't know. I feel like this is not too bad in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, but again, also let us know which ones you guys thought was the worst. I still think that Mackay's is probably the strongest of them all.
Of the ones that we've looked at, probably.
Yeah, but there's so many more infinite combos. There's so many more ways to make infinite combos. These are just some of the ones that we thought were the big four, more or less, that you kind of see happening, that need a little bit to work with. I mean, however, you have cards like Tooth and Nail, which you don't need anything else to
Yeah,
go
it's
with
just
it.
kind of a
itself.
one-card combo, yeah.
Yeah, but we can even go into stuff like that. So let us know what you like, what you use, what you think, and then you can reach us at many places, Kyle, somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, you can get to us on Reddit page. We have Twitter and Facebook as well, Tapped Out, where we have all our decks. You can take a look at those. And of course, you can also hit us up at mtgthecardpool@gmail.com if you're an old school email sort of person.
Yeah, we're old-fashioned. But until then, I'm Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And we'll see you next time at the card pool.
That's pretty good, right? Yeah.
I hate my guys.